Alright, next video, or this video I should say, this one's going to be the poly modeling review video. So, I've already got an object on screen that I built earlier, and let me just set it back into regular unsmoothed mode. So we're going to build this. I'll smooth it again, or I'm going to build this. Remember, the homework assignment for this week was to take a primitive and make it into sort of polymodel it into a more quintessential version of what you think is a good representation of that. So I went pretty literal with this. There is an object called a cone, right, which I've just made one there. That is a polycone shape. And so I turned it into a traffic cone, kind of a, decent looking traffic cone, I think. So I'm just going to delete that guy because I can just polymodel another one. In fact, I'm about to. That's what I'm going to do in this video. So I'll close that. We're kind of more or less back to our neutral UI. So I'm just going to start by creating a cone. I'm going to increase the height a little bit until it seems more like what I think a cone would look like. And now I'm going to move it up. Oops, I didn't actually get the move handle. There we go. I'm going to move it to 1.75. because I want there to be a little bit of room for that bottom part. And so this is a way to do it, as I probably have mentioned a number of times. There's a million ways to do all of the different things. So this is just, I'm just going to be going over a couple of the polymodeling tools again. And if we're really lucky, maybe we'll see some that I didn't use before. In fact, I know we will, because the first thing I'm going to do with this guy is I am going to go to Edit Mesh, and I'm going to, under Vertex, Chamfer Vertices. So I'm actually going to use the dialog box for this one. Let's apply and see what that does. That's too much, so I'm going to Control Z. Ooh, actually, let's apply it, and we'll use the middle mouse button because we can actually, we've got this poly chamfer thing down here, so we can edit it on the fly. And that's right-ish. Let's call that good. We'll be done now. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to face mode. I'm going to grab the top and bottom faces of this, and I'm going to delete them. In general, you never want to have what you think of as a final model be not sort of what's the word? You could fill it with liquid waterproof, essentially, or watertight, right? Your model should be watertight, which means that every vert should be connected to other verts. You should never have this open edge like I do when it's done. I mean, in the middle it's fine. It doesn't matter that I've done this. It's not a problem. But in general, a good model is one that has no holes in it like this, because these are actually back faces. The reason that they are black, even though I'm facing them, right, even though the light should be striking them the way the light's striking all of the rest of these, the reason that that happens is because that's how the computer renders the opposite side of the face, and that is not good to be able to see in like 99% of the renderings that you do. So just make sure you cap all your holes whenever you're done, or in the process of modeling. I'm actually going to do something that will make this problem irrelevant. I'll show you what that is when we get to it. But moving on, I'm just going to go ahead and get myself into edge mode, and then add a couple of edge loops. So insert edge loop, and the way my tool is right now is every time I do it, it wants me to tap enter to finish. I don't want to do it that way, so I'm going to double click this, and let's see, I'll get back into my insert edge loop tool. So now I want autocomplete on. So now that autocomplete is on, I can actually just grab any given edge and just slap an edge loop into it. I could do this 50 times. I mean, I'm going to undo that. I could do that as many times as I want, but that was as many times as I wanted. So anyway, moving on. This is going to be one of those times where I really want to use my drag selects. So I just wanted that one row of edges So I just selected across it and then deselected the top and bottom parts of that. So drag select is your friend, as I have mentioned before. So anyway, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this edge. So I'm going to middle mouse up and down. I just want it a little bit closer to the top. But I want it closer to the top, and I don't want it to make a bunch of strange changes to the shape of this. So as you can see, it's adhering to my mesh shape. So I'm just sliding it up slightly. And again, that's a middle mouse button thing. If I was doing it with the move tool, it would actually just be moving straight up and down. Instead of moving up and down the length of the edge, it would move up and down the actual world y-axis. So anyway, so I've got that set. I've got my bottom, the bottom of my edge set so that I've got good supporting geometry. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just insert one more edge loop just right here in the middle. And I happen to know that my slide edge tool will snap it to certain positions, and one of the positions is halfway between one point and another point. So I slid it all the way to the bottom, and then I slid it halfway up, and it snapped to the halfway point because I actually wanted it at the halfway point. And again, middle mousing to the right and left to do that. It snapped a lot, so you probably saw it move in weird ways, but you should kind of get the feel of that when you've been using the tool for a little while. Anyway, the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to do an edge extrusion, and extrude is going to be one of the tools that you use more or less, like probably 80% of the time you're modeling. So this is one that we have a shortcut key for, just Control E, and now I have my extrude available. Right, and this is actually extruding along the normal of that edge, right, which means the direction that this plane is facing, which is why it's extruding slightly up. And I actually don't want it to do that. I want it to scale out. So I could move it away from the normal of that surface, or to have a flat movement, a flat uniform movement, I can scale everything up. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to scale it up so that it doesn't move along the axis of that polygon, it moves along the axis of the world. So I'll scale it up. Let's move to the top, and we'll kind of scale it till we look like we've got something that's decent, and that looks alright. So let's switch tools to the... I'm going to scale some things. Let's scale some vertices. I'm going to grab these 4 verts, and I'm going to scale them to 0 in, what is that, the z-axis. Same thing again, scale them to 0 in the z-axis. Now these ones are getting scaled to 0 in the x-axis, and the same with these guys. I am just turning them into a square because the base of a cone, sorry about that beep by the way, you probably heard that in one of the previous videos. That's just me getting emails on the windows that I probably should have closed already, but I didn't. So anyway, ignore them. So anyway, now that I've got all of that sort of squared off, I'm going to grab those 2 sets of edges and I'm going to kind of scale them up because I want this square to be just a little bit harder edge square. And let's go to there. We'll tap 3 and see if that more or less resembles a cone's base. And I think that's good. I'm kind of eyeballing this, but I think that's good. Now I'll hit back to 1. And one thing I'm going to do, just to kind of line some stuff up, I'm going to grab all of these verts and I am going to snap them right in line with the polygons that, with the verts that they extruded from. And it will become clear why I'm doing this in a little bit. Right now I'm kind of just preempting it because I happen to know that it's going to be an issue that I am seeing coming down the line. So anyway, so snapping vertices to other vertices, what I'm doing is I hold V, and while I'm holding V, I can snap one vert to another vert, right? That's actually not super useful a lot of times, so what you can do is if you want it to just align to that axis, hold V and grab one of these, grab one of the handles so that it will only move, in this case, in, what is that, Y, or X, sorry. Yeah, so that's X. or I could snap in the z-axis. I'm snapping between these two verts here, but it's only moving in one axis. Those tools I find to be really, really helpful. So, you know, hold V, you can use your snapping tools, and you get access to all kinds of quick alignment stuff that will make your job just a little bit easier. Anyway, let's get back into edge mode, because now I have to make the walls of the base, or finish the walls of the base. So again, I'm just going to extrude, and I'm going to extrude straight down, and I'm going to extrude straight down about halfway. I'm just eyeballing it. It doesn't actually matter. I mean, it matters a little bit because of what I'm doing at the end. I'm going to put those little rubber base parts at the bottom. And by the way, when you want to finish using a given tool, my habit is to just tap Q, which gets me back to my selection tool, or W, or whatever. Just tap a key that will activate one of your other tools, and that will essentially complete that action. So anyway, now I'm going to do the same thing up here. I'm in edge mode. I missed my click, so here we go. I'm going to double click this so I get that edge loop, extrude it, and then again I'm going to scale these down instead of moving them, because they would move along the axis that is the alignment of this plane's normals. That's not what I want, so I'll just slide it in using the scale tools, and then again hit W so that I'm not still in that tool anymore. And actually, I'm going to undo that once, and the reason for that is I am to the point now where I actually want to make this thing, I want to give my cone some thickness, because I want it to actually be a shell, but that shell should have a shell. And that hopefully will make sense when I do what I'm about to do, which is face. I go into face mode, double click on the object, which just grabs the whole thing, and now again Control E for extrude. And so I'm going to extrude this, and I know that extruding it out is actually not what I want, because that increases the thickness to the outside. I want to increase the thickness to the inside. So I'm actually going to extrude it past itself. I'm going to extrude it inside. So I'm going to extrude in the negative direction in this case. And I'm again just kind of eyeballing this. Let me eyeball from the top too, because, oops. Ooh, that's super weird. I wonder why it's doing that. I don't know, but I'm just going to fix it later, because everything else looks like it's working, and I can kind of re-polymodel that top bit without too much effort. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll hit W to get into my move tool. And now, you know, kind of one thing that you may have sort of figured out about this is that it's actually like totally wrong. Every single face that you're looking at, I'm just deleting this out of cleanliness, but every single face you're looking at is backwards, right? The inside of it, that's the front-facing part of your polygon, and so all the time that we're looking at the back faces. So what we need to do is we need to reverse the normals. I'm going to grab the whole thing again. Actually, I'll just drag select it across it in case those deletions that I made interfered with my ability to double-click a single object or a single unit. And I'm going to go to, I think this one was under Mesh Display. Yeah, Normals, Reverse Normals. So now I've reversed my normals, and everything is back the way it should be, which is excellent. And it looks like the interior of my cone is probably a little too thick, but I actually don't care, because you probably won't see the inside of it most of the time. So I'm actually just going to call that good. If I super needed to fix it, what I would do is I would get into face mode, click 1, double click 2, that's going to give you an edge loop. I would just do the same thing again, click 1, double click 2, that would give you another edge loop, and then do the same thing on the inside, click 1, double click 2, and actually I guess we are going to fix it just so you can kind of see how I would do that. I'm just going to scale it along these two axes, the X, Z axis, and oh, you know what? I don't think that's going to work. Yeah, we'll have to scale, I'd have to scale the parts individually, so I would have to like scale this alone, scale that up alone, which is fine. I'll just go ahead and do that, and then that's more or less right. I think that that's pretty good. Anyway, so now I'm going to just continue on fixing all of my issues. Control E to extrude again, go over to my local scales and kind of drop them down, and then I think what I want to do is I want to take this series of edges, so I should actually be back in edge mode. I accidentally switched to vertex mode. Double click to get an edge loop, and now I'm going to look at it from top view. In my scale, I'm going to make sure that those edges line up. They don't have to line up exactly, I just want them to line up closely. And then I'm going to go in this other view, and again I'm going to vertex snap it all the way to the top just like that. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of those verts, and let's grab them by double clicking one of those edges and then double clicking the other of those edges. Now I have every edge in there, and I kind of just managed to do that by just being really zoomed in really close and pretty picky about which one I was grabbing. If you didn't manage to grab them correctly, you could kind of just scale one up or down, and that way you could see it a little bit better. But I didn't need to do that. I could actually just zoom in and then wait until the one I thought I was grabbing was highlighted in red, double click, and then I've got that whole edge loop. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my selection. Let's see, I don't actually remember where this is. Let's see if we can find it really quick. It should be like convert selection in here. Convert, that's not it. I want it to be in here. Maybe I've seen it and just missed it. I'm just going to use the shortcut key for now. The shortcut key is, I think, Shift F9, maybe Shift F8, Shift F10. Wow, those weren't it either. I feel like it ought to be in the select menu. There's grow and there's shrink. Oh, here it is, convert selection. I was looking right past it somehow. Alright, anyway, convert selection. I want to convert this selection to vertices. It was Control F9, that's why. So anyway, now I have my vertex selected, or my vertices selected the way that I want them to, and now I am going to merge them. So there's no shortcut key for this one. I tend to just merge, and then I'll wind up using this input over here. The distance threshold is what you'll use to determine how far it's going to look to merge with another vertice, or a vertex, sorry. And I tend to just go until I see an error and then back off just a little bit. So this isn't what I want, this is what I want, which means that's probably about the highest the threshold could be. And still not make problems for me. So I'm going to do that, hit W and move on, because we're kind of set with that tool. Now you can see all those are one vert instead of two. Anyway, moving on. Now what I want to do is I want to fix, I want to fix the bottom part, because the bottom should be more or less flat. So I'm just going to select the edge ring around here of vertices. So click once, double click twice, and that'll go in the direction of that edge loop. And delete all of those. And then let's get into edge mode. I'll double click that edge, and now again I'm going to use my vertex snapping. So hold V, grab only one of those handles, and then drag it down. And now what I'm going to do is, actually I will stay in this view, is I'm going to target weld each of these. Not actually for a particularly good reason, but just more or less to show you the tool and the fact that it exists. And actually one last thing that I'm going to do, this isn't a flat set of polygons. These faces here, as I grab all the way around, if I were to look at them here, you actually see that they have some depth, right? I don't want them to have depth, so I'm just going to scale that all the way down. They have no depth, Now that they've been scaled, though, I have to align them to that vertex. So hold V, align them to the vertex, and then go into vertex mode. Now I'm going to do all of that target welding. So again, I'm really just doing this to kind of show the tools. It doesn't really matter which of these I weld to. I just kind of want it to be a more or less a uniform edge, and that's actually not for a particular reason either, except that I'm just really picky about my geometry. And being picky about your geometry, you'll find sometimes will take more time than maybe it warrants, and other times will save you just a crazy amount of work. If you've been picky about your geometry, you may just not run into problems that you would otherwise have run into. One of my teachers when I was in school at Noman, this one just doesn't want to weld, there it goes, had a shirt that said "Stay in quads," right? Because as we've talked about before, you always want to make sure that you model in quads and that you stay away from anything above a quad, and that you limit the number of triangles in your model as much as possible, so you've got really, really good geometry. And I'll tell you, one of the students that I went to school with, a guy named Nathaniel Morgan, who is extremely talented. I thought about starting the Nathaniel Morgan fan club because of how good he was at modeling. Anyway, he is super duper picky about his geometry. He is like me. He is nuts about it. And he just finished working on a movie that you may have heard of called Star Wars, The Force Awakens. So, being picky about your geometry might get you somewhere. If you're like super interested in like doing actual polygon modeling work, be picky about your geometry. I'm not going to tell you you'll work on Star Wars. I think it was kind of dumb luck for him. He happened to be in the right place at the right time. But regardless, good geometry makes good work. So that's just kind of the point I'm trying to prove. Anyway, so we kind of got this set. I want to just do one more bit of supporting geometry down here. So I'm going to grab my edges and get into a regular tool. I was still in my weld tool at that point, which is why my cursor looked a little bit weird. Anyway, so go back to Insert Edge Loop, click on my edge, slide it on down. And one thing that I've actually been doing that you don't have to do is that if your tool is set up right, Insert Edge Loop will just work wherever you tap it. So that me being picky about my selection is actually not necessary in this case. So anyway, one more bit of supporting geometry there, I think. And I'm going to say that looks reasonably good, except for the very bottom. The last thing I'm going to do is a little bit of extruding, so we'll go to face mode, go back into selection mode. I want this on 1. Actually, let me do one more edge loop. I think this is still my edge loop. Yeah. Last tool you use is just going to always be over there down in this corner of your set of tools. So I just kind of used that to my advantage. Just grab that tool real quick. So anyway, I've got all the supporting geometry that I want. I'm going to go back into face mode, selection mode, so that I can select some of these faces. Ooh, there's one more thing I want to do. One more thing, and that is edge mode. I'm going to grab that guy, that guy, that guy, and that guy. And I want to open up those edges. I want to just put a little bit more detail in there. And that's the offset edge loop tool. So I'm going to wind up doing this to these edge loops one at a time, or to these edges one at a time. And this tool has been giving me all kinds of weird issues. I'm trying to figure out exactly how it works. Here's what I'm going to do though. I'm just going to hit enter, and then I'm going to edit its settings in my inputs right here. Oh, maybe I can't. I might have too many I might have too many inputs in here for the computer to really want to behave. So I'm going to do something that I think I probably showed you guys before. I am going to edit, delete by type, history, or Alt-Shift-D. And I think Alt-Shift-D won't work on this because if I Alt-Shift-D, it will do something related to the screen capture software, so I'm not going to use that that tool or that shortcut key. But I am going to get back into here, into edge mode, and get back to, what was I just doing? Insert edge. Oh, that's not what it was. I was using offset edge loop. So, oh, I know why. This sort of maxes out at the at this triangle's distance to the next edge. So I can't go any further than that, and that's a slight difference in the way that I built this. I don't think I built supporting geometry the first time on this edge, so I have to come up with a, well, I'll just do a shallower version of it than I intended to. But so I'll open that up. It doesn't want to do this for me. Drag, enter. Click on edges to define an edge loop, then press enter. Huh. I think the issue is that if you get to the maximum extent of its capability, yeah, if you go past its past where it's happy about what you're doing, it won't complete. So I'm gonna just bring it up, drag it back a tiny bit, complete the tool, drag it up, drag it back a tiny bit till it starts moving. There it goes. And tap enter. And I'm going to see if there's like an auto-complete on here. I don't think there is. So drag it all the way up, back it off a tiny bit, tap enter, and now I am going to grab two of these edges. The reason that I have to actually kind of fix some of this, which I didn't before, is I've got to scale some of these guys up because I need them to be a bit wider than that. So I'll just go ahead and grab them, widen them up, grab these guys, again widen them up, and I'm kind of just grabbing stuff two at a time because I just can. There's no reason not to do this end and this end at the same time. They're widening along the same axis, so I'm just going to do it at the same time. Anyway, so now I've got that. I'm going to go back to my selection tool, grab all the edges that I want to turn, or all the faces that I want to turn into the sort of little rubber base. Just once roll around my object to make sure I didn't accidentally grab something on the wrong side, and then again, last time, I'm going to extrude down. I'm going to extrude down far more than I need to, and the reason that I'm doing that is because I want to go into vertex mode and then be able to place them more particularly. And the way I'm going to do that is by holding X, snap to 0, and so now I know every single one of those verts is at 0, which means it is at the bottom, right? Or it's essentially sitting exactly on the 0 point of the world, which I'm going to call the ground plane for right now, which means that it is right. It is in the correct place. And now the very, very last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of the I'm going to grab all of the edges at the bottom, so drag select more than I need, oops, and then drag select to remove everything except what I don't need, and then real quick just remove these edges on these 4 here. And now I am going to, let's see if I can remember what this one's called. Here it is, it's bevel, it's under components. I wind up looking for tools that I know exist, but I don't know where they exist. So anyway, so on this bevel, I'm going to grab my fraction and slide it up and down, make sure that I am happy with where it is. And in fact, I'm going to look at this while I'm in smoothed mode so I can see exactly what result I'm getting here. And I'm going to say that looks about right. Maybe I'll zoom in a little bit more and just sharpen it up just a tiny bit. Alright, there we go. So, 31 minutes, but that's not bad. 31 minutes, as long as you guys don't mind the fact that I kind of droned on about a couple of tools I couldn't find. So, I'm in object mode. Ooh, wait, one last thing. I forgot to cap this hole. Ooh, we gotta take care of that. Let's get back into 1. Wait, did I forget to cap the hole, or was that a rendering error? I think those may be sort of errant polys. Let's get into face mode. No. See what happens when I move those up. 'Cause I don't know what that's coming from. I don't know what that's about. That may actually be unwelded vertices. But let's go into wireframe mode and just kind of have a look at what's going on in there. Yeah, we've got some weird geometry going on. I think. No, that should be right. So if you wind up with a problem like this, what I tend to do is I'll just grab the offending area. Sorry, grab the offending. Let me actually look at this right. Grab the offending area, kind of blow it away. Let's tap 3 again. That looks about right. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into edge mode, grab my edge, extrude it up. Let me actually do this in 1 mode, or 1. Yeah, here we go. So I can see what's going on for certain. That looks about right. And then, oops, I'll just make sure that it lines up real close with that edge, and then get back into selection mode. Oops, I zoomed in past my object. Grab all of my selection, and then go back into convert selection, which I found much faster this time. Convert to vertices, and you can convert it to anything. If I converted to faces, it would just wind up grabbing every face that touches any one of those edges. But shortcut Control F9, and then I'm going to do that merge operation again, which is right in here. Merge looks like it's working. That's too much merge. There we go. It looks like it's working at 0.01. Let me see if it works at 0.05. Here. I'll do 0.05 right here. Oh, that's still too much. So 0.01 is like just perfect then. And then let's go to, oh, you know what? It actually didn't merge. Let's get back into edge mode. Move this guy down. Oh, that's really interesting. So what I have here is non-manifold geometry. Non-manifold geometry means that I've got chunks of my mesh that are coming off in a way that does not actually make sense. And I need to remove all of the non-manifold geometry. And I think that means the merge has worked properly. And let's hit 3 to make sure. Oh, it's perfect. We are all set. Alright, there's my cone. Now my cone is finally done. So I've got kind of a nice looking top, and then it does this, you know, kind of soft edge like a cone does, and then just slopes off to the base, which is harder, and then on the base are those little sort of chunks. And I could, you know, I could go in and put in more supporting geometry and shape those all exactly the way that I wanted them to be. But I think you get the gist, and I think that's probably as good a cone model as I'd expect to see any of you this early in a poly modeling setting. So let me just frame that so I can kind of look around it really easily, and it looks good. So let's call that done. I'm going to stop the video, and I will see you guys in class.